All right, you have a piece of paper and a writing utensil. So we're going to do Cornell notes. You can get this information from your textbook, page 22, or you can get it from this slideshow, which might be easier in video. So you have your piece of paper and you're going to draw some lines or fold your piece of paper so that you have a top section. You have a margin area here. The margin area on your Cornell notes is going to be larger than the standard margin you would see on lined paper, which is usually has a red line. You want to go beyond that a little bit, so look about 2 inches from the side. This main note area is where you're going to do a lot of notes today, and then the summary section down here. So at the top, you're going to be putting your essential question, which is what is feudalism, and that would be the topic as well. And then you could put the date. Here, I'm actually going to have you put some questions in just a second, but sometimes you just put the important dates, ideas, etc. Today, though, we're going to do questions, and I'm actually going to give them to you ahead of time, so it's a lot easier. Main notes are here, and summary is here. All right, questions to answer. So I'm going to actually have you write right now in this column the actual question: what did the people of Western Europe prepare for? How did they prepare for raids from outsiders? What were the class levels of feudalism? Describe each level of feudalism, and you're going to watch a short video when you're done and take any notes from there. I would evenly space these out so that you have room here in the notes section. I'll be honest with you, you won't be writing a lot of notes today, unless, of course, you have to do it on your own with the textbook. So, question 1, or the first question, I should say. How did the people of Western Europe prepare for raids from Vikings, Magyars, and Saracens? And so you have Vikings, of course, we know them, but the Magyars and Saracens are like horse people from Asia, and then you have the Muslims from North Africa. And here is a map of the various groups that were trying to invade Western Europe. So you have the Magyars here, the Saracens here, and then the Vikings here from the north. And the Vikings had their notorious longboats so that they can go up rivers and into the ocean. And they could have a sneak attack if you weren't ready. So one thing that the Europeans did is they started to mound their villages to make it a little bit more difficult to raid. They still could, the people raiding could still manage to get in, but it was a lot more difficult. Later on, they had lumbered walls, so walls made of wood or lumber, trees that they cut down. And then, of course, they had just larger and larger structures, okay? And as you can see here, the idea of a moat as another defense. And then, of course, stone. They started to quarry stone and build things out of stone, okay? And so we have castles. So essentially, castles were built up to protect people. And then when the Vikings, Magyars, and Saracens kind of stopped invading, the castles were now a defense for other people in Western Europe, because Western Europe was divided into feudal states. There was also the manor, and the manor would be the person that not owned the area, because the king owned the area, but kind of ran, the noble who ran everything. This is an elaborate castle that still is in Europe today. It's kind of cool, actually. All right, next question. what were the class levels of feudalism. So you have the kings, and then you have the lords, and you have the vassals. And this is really confusing because vassal is actually a term for anyone who works under a group. So technically the lord is a vassal to the king, and in some instances the king was a vassal to another king. Okay, so as you can see, this vassal here is also a knight. And then of course you have the peasants, and another term would be serf. All right, so we have to describe each level in feudalism. So here's kind of a pyramid. I'll get into more detail here, so I'll zoom in. Let's start with the monarch or the king. So again, they give land to people because the king lives in a palace. They can't go everywhere, and so they divide up the land. And the people that live on the land are the lords, and they pay rent in the form of loyalty and military support. And so the Lord needs to like organize the knights in case there is some sort of attack or anything. Okay. And then the king gets money and advice and prayers and even crops from the lords. And then below the lords, you're going to have the knights, and then you'll have holy people. We're not there yet. We're not talking about the church yet, but we will. And so you have the knights there. They receive land from the tenants in chief, which are the lords, in exchange for fighting wars. And then there are the guardians to protect people. Okay, and then below the knights, we have, of course, the peasants. And the peasants will work on the knights or the lord's land as well as their own, and they will pay taxes in the form of crops. And a lot of times the term peasant is also replaced with serf. I'm going to have you watch this video to kind of sum up feudalism.